Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. We got a loaded show for you guys tonight. Didn't do a show yesterday, so I'm gonna carry some of the topics I would have done yesterday into today's show. And there's a lot to discuss. I'm going to start the show with Mike McCarthy and specifically what Jerry Jones said about Mike McCarthy and said about the Dallas Cowboys 2021 season, which, spoiler alert, he kind of dubbed it a failure. Not surprising at all. Also, speaking of the Cowboys, a little later in the show, I'm going to get into Dak Prescott a little bit. Obviously, you guys know Dak's my man. But I'm going to get into Dak a little bit as far as people are kind of crushing him, saying, oh, he's in the Kirk Cousins category, the Baker Mayfield, the Carson Wentz category. All right. I got numbers to totally disprove that garbage. I've also got some, what does he have? Russell Westbrook got benched, and Frank Vogel, I must say, is the scapegoat. Okay, Frank Vogel, what is being said about him in the media and by Laker Nation around the country is sickening. Okay, it bothers me a lot. I'm gonna get into that in just a second. Also going to talk about Russell Wilson and his possible future with the Seattle Seahawks. There's sort of a series of events that happened over the last week or so that are very, very interesting as far as whether he'll be in Seattle in 2022 or not. And I'll give you my prediction as to whether he will be in Seattle or not. Also, going to discuss the Rams' absolute total domination of the Cardinals on Monday night. First, though, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. Certainly has been, unlike Frank Vogel, you can't just make a strong argument that Mike McCarthy has been the source of some of the Cowboys' biggest problems this season. Probably is. I think it's one thing that Cowboys fans and Cowboys haters would all agree with. Mike McCarthy was the Cowboys' biggest problem, at least for this season. Now, I've been on record saying long-term, Jerry Jones is the biggest issue. I mean, he just is. He hires coaches he can control. He hires puppets. But I looked at this. Now, Jerry Jones was supposed to have a radio appearance on Dallas radio on Tuesday. I'm sure Jerry assumed that he was going to come on there celebrating a big win. And then this afternoon, he was supposed to come on, I'm sure he thought, and say, all right, let's get ready for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Instead, that's going to be the Los Angeles Rams who have that honor. I wouldn't say it's an honor, but you get what I'm saying. But Jerry Jones canceled his appearance on Dallas radio on Tuesday, but he showed up today. And let's just say Jerry Jones wasn't exactly all that thrilled, which is not surprising. So they asked him about Mike McCarthy's job security in Dallas, and he said it's not in the best interest right now to talk about where they are as a staff. So basically, he's not going to say, I'm going to commit to anybody quite yet. However, this was very, very interesting. So I'll get into Mike McCarthy's press conference after I get, kind of dive into Jerry's radio interview. So, Mike McCarthy the other day in that press conference was talking about, we need to improve on this, and next season we'll get to this and this and that. Jerry Jones, quote, let me be real clear. One of the pet peeves I have is I don't like this. Well, we've got to work on this in the offseason. We've got to work on this. I don't go for that. I want those things recognized and addressed after we play Tampa in week 1, after the first game, or after we play the 6th game. By the way, the 6th game was before the bye week. I don't want to wait until we're sitting here with no season left to address these things we're doing or not doing. All that's in the mix here and a part of what I do. That's the way I do it, as you know. The ultimate decision in these coaches is one that I have to make. So, not exactly an endorsement of Mike McCarthy. And some might say, well, I mean, he's just, it's classic owner talk. Mike McCarthy will be back. Listen, I think Mike's going to be back. But it is far from a guarantee. To give you an example, here's what Jerry Jones said about Jason Garrett after the 2018 season. This is the day after the season's over. Dallas missed the playoffs. It went 9-7. It was a disappointing year with injuries, and Dak, in my view, had the worst year of his young career at that point. Jerry Jones, after the 2017 season, quote, when he was asked about if Jason Garrett would be the head coach the following season, he said, it's not even a thought for me. I like the fact that we've invested several years of Jason evolving in this profession. So right off the bat, he's like, yep, Jason's going to be back next year. He said that about Mike McCarthy. Now, Stephen Jones, the day after the Cowboys playoff loss to the 49ers, said, yeah, I feel confident that Mike will be back in 2022. Now, again, I will tell you, I think that is going to be the case. I think Mike McCarthy is going to be back next year, and it's going to be the same old story. I already told you. We're going to go 11-6, maybe 10-7 at worst, win the division, go out in the first round to either San Francisco, the Rams, or the Cardinals, or possibly even Seattle's if Russell Wilson stays. On January 15th was when it'd be. Mark it down, Cowboy fans. January 15th, 2023 is going to be the end of our season. Just go ahead and put it down. Because it's going to be more the same if Mike McCarthy stays. Speaking of Mike McCarthy, glad y'all asked. Mike McCarthy had a press conference, a season-end press conference on Wednesday afternoon in Dallas at the Star. And he was asked about all different things and like that last call, which he defended. By the way, on that last call, instead of blaming the official like he blamed on Sunday, he actually blamed Dak. He said, I told Dak after the game, we need to, he needs to slide sooner. And while I agree, yeah, I came out and said the show the next day, hey, Dak, you got to slide quicker. I hated the call, hated it. That was the worst possible call you could have thrown in that situation with 14 seconds left and no timeouts. But Mike on Wednesday says, basically kind of throws his quarterback under the bus, which is not what you do as a head coach. Then, and this was the worst part of it, Mike was asked about, hey, coach, your team kind of got off to a slow start in the game. And he said, well, we were nervous. Excuse me? Mike McCarthy said we were nervous. And then later in the press conference, he retracted his comments and said that, no, it was more like angst. There was an angst. Let me give you, if you Google the definition of angst, here's what it is. Hold on, let me get it pulled up. All right, definition of angst. A feeling of deep anxiety or dread, but typically an unfocused one about the human condition or the state of the world in general. Mike, angst is worse than nervous. So, you know what that tells me? You know what it tells you? You know what it tells everybody? They were ready to play. Go back and look at the 49ers. I remember watching live on CBS, minutes before the game started, when the 49ers came out of their locker room. They had swagger. They had confidence. They had a kind of little strut to them, right? They had almost like they were walking on air. They came out of that locker room saying, we're going to win this game. They had one guy even come out of the locker room who had a big like jukebox, or not jukebox, but stereo or whatever, on his shoulder. It's like, oh boy, this team's ready to go. And shocker, the Dallas Cowboys were not. And so I can't help but think that press conference isn't driving Jerry Jones to say, gosh, I don't know if he can win us a Super Bowl. By the way, Jerry, later in that radio interview, they asked him about Dak. They said, hey, Jerry, you think Dak can win a Super Bowl? And Jerry was like, oh, absolutely, Dak can win us a Super Bowl. And again, I'll get to Dak later in the show. He was like, yes, Dak's our guy. Dak can win us a Super Bowl. Mike, I got to evaluate where we're at right now. Keep in mind, it's the same Mike McCarthy who lied about getting the Cowboys job, or how he convinced Jerry and Stephen Jones about getting the Dallas Cowboys job. Jerry, I cannot help but think that Jerry Jones is not thinking about this moment right here.
You said you analyzed every play or watched every play of the entire 2019 season. What is it that you learned from that experience that you think will benefit you most here?
Well, I need to confess. I told Jerry I watched every play of the 2019 season, but I wanted the job. So I haven't watched every play of the season, but it was just, you do what you got to do, right?
Translation, Jerry, I lied. I didn't watch every play of the 2019 Cowboys season. And you can hear Stephen Jones in the back, with this weird live. He ain't the guy. I heard Stephen A. Smith say the other day, and, people think, oh, Stephen A. hates the Cowboys. But he said something. I was like, totally agree with you. And I even said this in the summer. I don't think it's like this big revelation. Mike McCarthy is not a leader of men. Harry High School, Charlie F. around. He don't work here, right? Yeah. That's the guy who I'm going to follow out of the locker room who's going to win us this game, right? Yeah, I heard Charles Haley talking about, I think it was Ed Werder of ESPN, Cowboys reporter, was interviewing Charles Haley, the great Charles Haley, 5-time Super Bowl champion, more rings than any player in history except for, of course, Tom Brady. And he was asked about Mike McCarthy saying the Cowboys were nervous. And Charles Haley said, nervous to me? He said, you were ready. You didn't study for the test. That's why you were nervous. So, I don't know if Mike McCarthy is going to return next year. My guess is he will. But even if he's fired, I'm not going to come out on this show and be waving my pom-poms and being excited. Why? Because until Jerry hires a coach that isn't a puppet, why should I get excited? We thought Jason Garrett was bad, and look, I'm not going to be one of those people say, boy, I miss Jason Garrett. I don't miss Jason Garrett, okay? There's nothing about that man that I miss as being, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Not at all. They weren't this undisciplined. They didn't come out this flat. Matter of fact, oftentimes Garrett's team was kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter. Mike's teams are trying to claw and scratch their way back in the fourth quarter. And often they get big breaks like the interception by Jimmy Garoppolo. Or the not letting your left tackle get set, which Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, did later in that game. So at the end of the day, Jerry Jones has talked about each and every training camp, right? They hold this big press conference, and it's Jerry Jones, and it's his son Stephen Jones, and the head coach is in the middle. In this case, it's Mike McCarthy. And the reporters in Dallas talk about, Jerry, is this year? Can this team win the Super Bowl and all that? And I remember this training camp, Jerry not only said, I'd do anything to win the Super Bowl, I'd write any check I'd put any dollar amount check to win the Super Bowl. Not only did that, he went so far as to admit, I probably shouldn't have fired Jimmy Johnson. Well, no kidding, Jerry. We've been trying to tell you that for the last quarter century plus. And so if Jerry really does want to win a Super Bowl, and I think he does, I don't think there's any question. He gets emotional when he talks about it. He's tasted success. He knows what it's like to hold the Lombardi Trophy and have confetti falling down from the stadium. I don't doubt that he wants another Super Bowl. I don't think he's blowing smoke like a Dan Snyder or a Woody Johnson or some of these bad owners that are in the NFL. No, I think he's dead serious. But he has to do it his way. Does Jerry Jones want to hire a coach that he lets coach? History tells you no. I'll give Jerry a shot. If Mike gets fired, okay, Jerry. There's some good candidates on the market. Brian Flores, as far as I know, last I checked, he's still out there. Brian Dable, who's an excellent offensive coordinator in Buffalo. Todd Bowles. There's some no-joke candidates. Hey, how about Dan Quinn, who's in your building? There's some good candidates out there. Hopefully not candidates who would lie to you or say, we were nervous or we had angst or throwing the quarterback under the bus. That's the guy you think can lead your team to a Super Bowl? Jerry's thinking about these things right now, and I guarantee you he may have to be talked out of firing Mike McCarthy. Ultimately, I think he will. 5 comments here before we get into our next topic. Excuse me. Let's see. Grady, my man, Grady Edwards. Any shot they still dump McCarthy? I absolutely think there's a shot. I don't think it's like a Hail Mary shot. Like there's no chance, and I don't think it's a sure thing whatsoever. I think I'm like 70-30 McCarthy returns. That's kind of where I'm at. 70% he returns, 30% he gets fired. That's kind of where I'm at. Grady says, if you really want to be legit, go get Jim Harbaugh. That's good point. I'm sure he'd say yes to the Dallas job. One of the jobs in sports can get Jerry to stay out of the way even just a little bit. Well, Jerry's never going to do that. I've given that up. And my man Barry says, I'm on the other side of this argument, B. I think Jerry's going to fire him because he wants to keep Quinn. Wouldn't be shocked at that at all either. My man Cooper Constantine from Australia says, hey, man, what's up? What's going on, my man? But yeah, I think certainly Jerry is considering that. I mean, when he sees Dan Quinn getting interview after interview and really being the hottest candidate on the market, Jerry's got to be thinking, oh shoot, he's in our own building. Like he's here. He's here at the Star. Well, not right now because he's going around the country, getting interviewed. And well, I don't know if he travels or they travel to him, but the point is he's not at the Star right now, the practice facility, of course. But he's got to be thinking, surely Dan Quinn's better than what this guy's putting out in the field. Remember, Dan Quinn did coach one game for the Cowboys this year. Mike McCarthy got COVID, and Dan Quinn coached from the sidelines. He usually, as a defensive coordinator, he's up in the booth. Well, he came down to the sidelines because he was the replacement coach. And only 5 penalties for the Cowboys. And add to it, they play with an energy. They play with an edge. Right? I remember that game. I believe it was the first game DeMarcus Lawrence came back, and he had been out for like 3 months with a broken foot. He was flying all over the field, and Micah Parsons was flying all over the field, and Randy Gregory and Carlos Watkins got a pick 6. Like, it was like, dang. Wow, there's a whole different energy about this right now. And that's at New Orleans, too. That's not an easy place to win. So, very well could be the case. So, I think at the end of the day, Jerry's got to be taking a lot of these things into account. Is Mike that guy? I think he's very much leaning towards no. And then is Dan Quinn our guy, as Barry pointed out in the comments. I think it's a very, very valid point on your part. And I think, Grady, you make a good case too. How about Jim Harbaugh? Like, if it's not, here's, you asking me as a fan, I'd say, number one at the top of my list is Dan Quinn. He's in the building. Number 2, Brian Flores. Brian Flores won double-digit games with Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick. What could he do with Dak Prescott? And then number 3, Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's really the only coach in the last 10 years, really the only college coach of the last 10 years who has had any legit success in the NFL. Like, we try to act like it was a disaster in San Francisco. Even the last year, they went 8-8. They weren't garbage. They won like 4 or 5 games. They went 8-8. I mean, first year, got to the NFC Championship game. Second year, barely lost in the Super Bowl. Third year, got back to the NFC Championship game, could have easily beaten the Seahawks in Seattle. And I think if they do win that game, they beat Denver 2 weeks later, because we saw what the Seahawks did to the Broncos, 43-8 happened. So, hey, listen, if it's Jim Harbaugh, if it's Brian Flores, if it's Dan Quinn, great. I'm all for it. But as long as, because it feels like if Mike is the guy next year, what is there to be optimistic about? Because the Cowboys are going to lose some key players. Like, a lot of dudes are free agents. Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz, Jaron Kearse, Randy Gregory. I mean, they got some key guys that are going to be on the market for everybody to sign if they wish. And so they were healthy. I mean, Dallas is like one of the healthiest teams in the playoffs. They were at home against the San Francisco 49ers team with a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo I can't trust as far as I can throw him. Didn't matter. Because as I feared last week, a week ago today, if the game came down to Kyle Shanahan or Mike McCarthy, who could out-scheme the other, I was scared. And of course, it came to bite us in the butt. Okay, real quick, I wanted to discuss super fast the Monday night game, the wild card game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Los Angeles Rams. I picked Arizona. That looks dumb now, but I picked Arizona to win for the simple fact that I felt like for the Rams, they just come off a really tough loss against the San Francisco 49ers. And so I'm thinking, man, they're coming in that game thinking, let's win the division, which they did anyway because the Cardinals lost to Seattle. But let's win this division and let's get the number 2 seed. Because if we get the 2 seed, we play Philadelphia. We're going to beat Philadelphia. Instead, they lose and they have to play Arizona. And so I figured, plus the pressure on Stafford. And so I'm like, Kyler and company are kind of playing with house money. No, they were not. No. It was a disaster from the start for the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray probably played the worst game of his NFL career, picked a really bad time to do so. And Matt Stafford, on the other hand, he didn't have to do much, right? 13 for 17, barely over 200 yards, couple touchdowns. QBR of 82, and an excellent passer rating of 154. So Matt Stafford played well for what he was called to do in his role. Right? He wasn't asked to carry the team. Even OBJ completed a pass for 40 yards. I got to say this, though. I guess it's still Odell's fault in Cleveland, right? It's still his fault. He screwed up Cleveland, right? Odell Beckham Jr. completed a pass for 40 yards. And he also had 4 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. It just goes to show you that when you have an average quarterback and you have shown the ability in your career at some points, like Odell did with the Giants, to be special. I mean, Eli Manning was at the end of his prime. He was good, right? I mean, I think Eli even made a Pro Bowl in 2015. Like, Eli could still play. Eli at the end of his career is better than Baker in year, whatever it is, 4. So it kind of brought my heart joy to see Odell succeed the way he did. I'm sure it brought some Browns players some joy to see Odell succeed the way he did. And so for the Rams, and again, I'm going to predict the divisional round games at the end of the show. You're going to Tampa. Tampa's beat up. Right? You got the receivers. If you double Cooper Kupp, okay. Number 3 might go off on you. OBJ might go off on you. Or Van Jefferson even. And by the way, can I just say this? Cam Akers. I've never seen a person come back that quickly and look that good off a very serious injury. I mean, Cam Akers, we're talking about an Achilles. We're talking about a running back, as I always say, the only unprotected position in football, in the NFL at least. Running back who tears his Achilles. That's like the worst injury you can have in sports. He looked pretty good to me. And I think he had, what do you have, like 55 yards total. And he had a ton of yards wiped away via penalties, like on holdings. So Cam Akers looked great. I mean, Cam Akers was one of the biggest reasons that I did like the Rams this season to possibly make a run at the NFC Championship game. Because, look, at the end of last season, he showed, he was physical, he was explosive, ran between the tackles well. Like, kind of everything you want in a running back, certainly in today's NFL. So he looked pretty good. As for Arizona, here's my thing on the Cardinals. I would bring back Cliff Kingsbury for next year for one reason. Because, and I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury fan at all, because you could say, okay, in 2019, we won 5 games. In 2020, we won I think it was 8 games or something like that. Okay, in 2021, we won 11 games. Almost won our division. Kyler gets better year in and year out. Now, you could probably say this is Kyler Murray more than it's Cliff Kingsbury. And if you look at Cliff Kingsbury's history, going back to Texas Tech, at the end of every single one of his seasons, his teams kind of struggle there at the end. So I think Cliff Kingsbury, as far as good teams, and we'll have to see how the Mike McCarthy situation plays out in Dallas, but as far as good teams, Cliff Kingsbury is probably on the hottest seat in the NFL next year. Because it's like, okay, we've got the guys, we got Kyler, missing DeAndre Hopkins killed any chance we had at contending for a Super Bowl. J.J. Watt shows that he can still play when he's healthy. Now, Chandler Jones is a free agent. They're going to need to keep him. Okay, Chandler Jones can still ball out. So keep Chandler Jones. He's one of the best pass rushers in football. You still got A.J. Green and Christian Kirk and guys like that. So I think for Arizona, by the way, James Conner, what a revelation he was. He was he's at the top of the NFL in touchdowns. So for the Cardinals, I do think they need to run it back. And if it's the same result, if they kind of hit a ceiling, then you need to let go of Cliff Kingsbury. Because in defense, I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury fan. Every one of his teams always collapses at the end of the year. Go look at his record at Texas Tech and now at the Arizona Cardinals. But in his defense, Cardinals have gotten better and better and better every year. Now you could say maybe it's because Kyler has gotten better and better and better every year. You could certainly make the argument. Honestly, I'd probably agree with you. But we got to give it one more year to see, okay, is Kingsbury the problem? So, and it's interesting, but for the Rams, they needed to win that game yesterday. I remember talking about Monday's show, like if they lost that game, I don't know what I was going to say. Because it's like Sean McVay pushed for the Rams to trade for Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford wanted out of Detroit, wanted to go to a Super Bowl contending team. Well, both guys got their wish. and they won a playoff game on Monday. If they're going to Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay is a little different monster than Arizona. As much as I like Kyler, he ain't no Tom Brady. So, again, I'll predict that at the end of the show. Let's move on to Dak Prescott for a second. So, I know that, kind of the pylon culture that we have in social media. Someone falls down, and so we're going to pile on. We're going to say, oh, you suck, while totally ignoring their past accomplishments. And this is exactly, predictably, what's happening with Dak Prescott. Now, I've come out on the show and said, Dak, he's no Aaron Rodgers or Brady or Russell or Mahomes, even Josh Allen from what he's shown me as of late. Heck, I'd even take Derek Carr over him. I love Derek Carr. But when I hear the people saying, okay, Dak is he's really like in the Kirk Cousins category, and he's in the Baker Mayfield and Carson Wentz. That is really cute. Let me give you the numbers first of all, right off the bat. So Dak was so bad this year. He tied Aaron Rodgers for 4th in touchdown passes. But he played in a bad division. Aaron's in the NFC North. Is the NFC North much better than the NFC East? Detroit? Chicago? Minnesota? Is that much better than Washington and the Giants and Philly? Philly's credit, they made the playoffs. Anybody else in the NFC North make the playoffs? I don't think so. And again, Dak was so terrible. I mean, I had to stop watching the TV. He finished 3rd in passer rating, behind Aaron Rodgers, who's going to win MVP, and Joe Burrow, who is fantastic. Above Tom Brady and Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and Derek Carr and all the elite quarterbacks in the game. Keep in mind that Dak had a running game in the second half of the season that went absolutely stagnant. Tony Pollard, Kellen Moore stopped giving him the football for reasons I am not sure of. Ezekiel Elliott, now I'll give Zeke a little bit of a break because he played with the torn PCL, but no explosiveness, inability to run between the tackles like he could his first 3 years, kind of slow, didn't move all that well. An offensive line where Tyron Smith, and I love Tyron Smith, he needs to hang up the cleats. He ain't that dude anymore. And Zach Martin thought it was the worst year of his NFL career thus far. You got Lyle Collins, who's not even playing his natural position. He's a left guard, not a right tackle. Connor Williams, who is the left guard. Yeah, all he did was lead the NFL in holdings. So Dak was playing behind the chains a lot. And Tyler Biadasz, who's fine. I like Tyler Biadasz. He's on a rookie contract. He's fine. But he's no Travis Frederick. Okay. Receiving unit. I hear a lot of people talk about, CeeDee Lamb, and if the Cowboys use CeeDee. Yeah. He, his last 7 games of the season, no touchdowns. None. And Dallas took him above Justin Jefferson. You also have Amari Cooper, who, by the way, speaking of Amari Cooper, Jerry Jones didn't seem too thrilled with what Amari Cooper was doing, right? If I could pull up the quote. Jerry was not happy with Amari as well. He said, quote, Amari Cooper should take half the field with him on routes. He said a whole bunch of that defense ought to honor Cooper. He ought to be able to catch it in the middle when they're going with him. Others do. You throw to people that are covered all the time. So basically, Amari's inconsistency is what Jerry has a problem with. Cedric Wilson, I kind of like Cedric Wilson. Like, I think he's a solid slot receiver. He's no Cole Beasley or he's no, guys like that, but he's a nice player. You also have a defense, Trayvon Diggs, who gave up over 1,000 yards receiving. I've never bought into Trayvon Diggs. Okay, I get he gets all the interceptions. He also gives up a ton of yards. And if Jimmy Garoppolo hits Brandon Ayuk down the left sideline after he predictably beat Trayvon Diggs on a double move, we're probably not even talking about a quarterback draw with 14 seconds left because the game would have never even came down to that. Micah Parsons is the only, I'd say, and Laurent D-Law to a certain degree, and I like Randy Gregory. Micah Parsons is the only guy in that defense that I love. Like, Micah Parsons is the best player on the Cowboys. He's unreal. He's got the quickness, strength. I think he's got great leadership intangibles, especially for a rookie. Love Micah Parsons. Everybody else in that defense, they're fine. Mike McCarthy, already talked about him. I think we all agree he's not the coach that can help the Cowboys win a Super Bowl. Kellen Moore, how he's getting head coach interviews, I am unaware of. Chris Sims of NBC Sports did a film breakdown of the Dallas Cowboys offense. You know what it is? At least in the passing game? 10-yard curls. No shots down the field. And so at the end of the day, all that, Dak tied with Aaron Rodgers for 4th in touchdown passes with 37, most in Cowboys history, and 3rd in passer rating behind only Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow. By no means am I saying that he's better than Tom or Russ or Mahomes. But could we at least slide him in that category? Oh, no, but he's Kirk Cousins. All the numbers. Okay. Let's talk about value. You guys probably get tired of me talking about value. That's why I said Derek Carr on my ballot would finish 3rd behind Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, I'd vote Brady to win the MVP. Rodgers is a close 2nd. Derek Carr would be my 3rd place for MVP. Value. You want to know how valuable Kirk Cousins is? In 2017, without him, with Case Keenum, who's a backup, the Minnesota Vikings went 13-3 and got to the NFC Championship game. They signed Kirk Cousins in the offseason. Same roster. 8-7-1. Missed the playoffs. Carson Wentz is so he's in that same category as Carson Wentz, really. Carson Wentz in 2020, in which he started all but 3 games for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles went 4-11-1, last in the division. A year later, no Carson Wentz. They go with Jalen Hurts, who I don't even buy into. 9-8, made the playoffs. Then you look at Baker Mayfield. I've heard people say, "Oh, he's Dak Mayfield or Baker Prescott," or what I've heard some people call him. Browns went 6-9 with Baker Mayfield. They went 2-0 without him this season. So at the end of the day, and let me give you something else. So may I also point out that the Cowboys in 2020 without Dak, because he, of course, suffered that terrible ankle injury in week 5. I think it was week 5 against the Giants. Cowboys won 4 games the rest of the season. Keep in mind, this injury happened in mid-October. They won 4 games the rest of the season. The Cowboys in 2020 finished with Dak Prescott, with Dak, best offense in the NFL. Without him, they finished in the bottom half. But the Cowboys need to get rid of Dak, right? Like, he's part of the problem. I am by no means saying Dak Prescott played well on Sunday. I was the first on Monday to say, Dak, you got to be better, man. You cannot have a 69 passer rating and a 27 QBR and throw a bad interception in your own territory. I said that. It's critical of him because he didn't play well enough for the Cowboys to win. He did not play well enough for the Cowboys to win that game on Sunday. But for the people dancing on and say, "Oh, this is the guy you're playing $40 million?" Yeah. To deal with this crap, to deal with a meddling owner, an unqualified head coach, a predictable offensive coordinator, no deep threats, an average offensive line, no running game, and a defense that's hit and miss, and you won 12 games and got to the playoffs? Value. People don't talk about this enough. There's a reason Jerry Jones said, "Oh yeah, Dak can win us a Super Bowl." He didn't say that about Mike McCarthy. He took shots at Amari Cooper. Just saying. Let's move on now to what else we got. Oh, yes, this is going to be fun. Russell Westbrook got benched the other night against the Indiana Pacers. And yes, before everybody gets on me, yes, I know the Pacers backups beat my Golden State Warriors starters. I don't want to talk about it. I was about to throw something when I was watching that game. That was frustrating. Let's talk about the Lakers. So, Lakers are playing the Pacers. They blow a 15-point lead, wind up losing the game. And for the last 3 minutes and 42 seconds of that game, Russell Westbrook did not play. He was benched by Frank Vogel. And a lot of people are saying, like, listen, because there's people dissing Westbrook. I said beforehand it wouldn't work. But there's also people dissing Frank Vogel. Now, I'm by no means a Frank Vogel apologist. I've always said he has his limitations. rotations being chief among them. But my thing with Frank Vogel is this. He brought a certain edge to the Lakers defensively. Because in 2020, the year they won the NBA Finals, they finished first in defensive rating. Last year, they finished first in defensive rating. And so now they say, you know what? Lakers say, let's get older. Let's sign Russell Westbrook, who Frank Vogel never wanted. Let's bring back Dwight Howard, 2 years older than he was when they won the championship with him. And Kent Bazemore, who all he does is miss wide open threes. And Trevor Ariza, who's never been a big game performer in the playoffs and is 36. And Carmelo Anthony. Now, the Melo signing's been decent, but he doesn't play defense. Oh, yeah. Let's also bring in DeAndre Jordan, who did not play a second for the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs last year. And he was fully healthy, to my knowledge. Let's bring in Rajon Rondo, who got multiple DNPs during the playoffs for the Clippers last year. A beat-up Clippers team. A team that needed some guys to step up, needed some depth. They still didn't play Rondo. That's how bad he was. So I'm supposed to blame Frank Vogel for all this? Well, Montrezl Harrell got benched. Yeah, he did, because he doesn't play defense and he's hit and miss offensively. You know what you're getting from Montrezl Harrell. He's been fine with Washington, but there is a reason that a good Clippers team let him walk. If he was that valuable, they'd have kept him, right? So my thing is, why is it that Russ is playing poorly, really has all season long? This team doesn't play defense. Not because you can't say it's because their coach hasn't, put the right defensive lineups out there. It's because they're old. It's because the roster does not work. I told you guys that in July or August, whenever the signings were completed and the trades. It doesn't work. So to blame the head coach for this, and Charles Barkley even talked about this last night, it's ridiculous. Frank Vogel's not the issue for the Lakers. Okay, it's the fact that AD is always down. AD stands for always down in my book because he is. He should be back in a few days. He'll probably get hurt again. Russell Westbrook is the most inefficient player in basketball. Not much Frank Vogel can do to coach that out of him. He's in year 14. He is who he is. The coach can't get that out of him. Carmelo Anthony, though he can still score fairly well, fairly efficiently, does not play defense. And the rest of the roster, as Chuck said, a bunch of, what do you say, old geezers is what he said. They're old. This is a retirement home basketball team. And I'm supposed to blame the coach? No. I blame the front office. And as much as I love him, I blame LeBron James. LeBron not only okayed the Westbrook move, he pushed for the Westbrook move. They had a trade in place to go get Buddy Hield, who would have been, a match made in basketball heaven with LeBron James. Because what does LeBron love? Shooters. Outside of the Splash Brothers and Damian Lillard, it's hard to get a much better shooter than Buddy Hield. LeBron said, no, I want Westbrook. I want a guy who, if we're, if AD's down or I need a night off, who can carry us through. Yeah, how's that worked out, LeBron? I love you, man. I don't think you should be getting the most votes, for the All-Star game, but that's neither here nor there. You played MVP-level basketball. You are dragging the Lakers. But part of the reason you're dragging the Lakers is of your own doing. You did okay the Westbrook trade. You did want to bring Carmelo there. Rob Pelinka, I haven't heard a word from you. Where have you been? Rob Pelinka made some of these moves too as the general manager of the Lakers. Right? He's the one who made this deal for Westbrook go through with the Washington Wizards. They traded KCP, who Vogel loved. They traded Harrell. He didn't love Harrell. And he traded Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma's been pretty darn good with the Wizards. Lakers could use him. And they let Dennis Schroeder go, who's one of the best defensive point guards of the league. He's looked pretty good in Boston. And they let Alex Caruso go. Vogel loved him. How's he looked in Chicago? All he's done is led the Bulls to one of the best records in basketball. As far as I know, I think they're still the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. But I'm supposed to blame the coach? This is not a situation like Dallas with Mike McCarthy where he's not putting the players in the best position to succeed. Vogel's they gave Vogel the ingredients to make a pizza, but they're asking him to make a cake. It's like, what do you want me to do? I got nothing to work with here. And so at the end of the day, this is why I say about the Lakers, they'll absolutely get to the playoffs. Although even that's kind of not a guarantee. All likelihood, the Lakers will probably be in the play-in tournament again. And last year, Lakers' issue was health. Right? LeBron got hurt, and they didn't have really much of an offseason at all. They had, I think, the shortest offseason of any defending champion in sports history. It was like 70-something days. It's like, I'll give you a break. I'll give you a break. LeBron didn't have time to rest, and AD not only didn't have time to rest, he wasn't in shape. The roster was fine. They had the guys to go win a title last year. Their issue was just injuries. What'd they do? They overreacted. LeBron, in a way, kind of like Kevin Durant, said, I want to play with my friends, even though some of my friends are either old or not reliable. LeBron and KD kind of made the same mistake. Guys like Giannis, so let's run it back. It was shaky last year, but hey, we won the finals. How are the Bucks looking right now? The Warriors, although they've been up and down as of late, haven't played well since Christmas, but Steph says, okay, we got the young guys. Let's bring in some veterans. Let's not bring a bunch of old guys. Let's bring in Otto Porter, who can shoot and play defense and play the 5 if we're going to our small lineup. Let's bring in guys like Gary Payton, who's a veteran, locks you down defensively. LeBron, Kevin Durant made the same mistake. The difference is KD left. KD left for Brooklyn. LeBron's in LA, but he put together an old roster that doesn't work. I hate to tell you. Not really. I told you it happened in August. Comment here. Come on, John. You've been watching the same basketball I am. He said they're going to be okay. I'm telling you, this is who they are. Eventually, we get to mid to late January. Unless you make some deals at the deadline, this is kind of who you are. I mean, if they trade Westbrook, which I don't know how they're going to pull that off, that contract is as bad as probably the worst contract in the NBA belongs to Russell Westbrook. So I don't know how they're going to trade that to trade him and trade that contract. But you also, again, the Lakers' issue last year was not that the roster didn't work. It was they were injured. They're hurt. And at the end of the day, you're asking LeBron now he's 37 years old to carry you. He can still play out of his mind. He still looks, physically looks like he's still 30. But there's some tread on those tires. Okay, he's not going to play forever. John just says AD is coming, and AD is probably going. He's coming. He's probably going to be going pretty soon. Whether it's his knee, ankle, back, shoulder, foot, I don't know. It's going to be something. Hamstring, groin. He's had just about, you look at the course of Anthony Davis's career, he's had just about every injury in the book. So that's my problem with the Los Angeles Lakers. It's a poorly constructed roster, yet people are blaming the head coach. I don't get it. For the life of me, I don't get it. The roster will work. You made a mistake, but the people who are really responsible for this mess, not saying a word. I love LeBron. He bears some responsibility for this. He okayed the Westbrook deal. He said, I want Russell Westbrook. I want some of these older players. Dwight Howard. Rob Pelinka. So let's bring in Kent Bazemore. Now, Malik Monk was the only move. Remember, you can go back and watch it. The Malik Monk move is the only one where I was like, oh, okay, that may work. But then you're asking, not only is it old, but you're asking guys who've never played defense to play defense. They weren't in that role last year. Taylor Horton Tucker, he can score. He's never played defense. He didn't play defense last year. So the young guys have never played defense. The old guys can't play defense. And Vogel didn't want half these guys on the roster. He wanted Caruso to stay. He wanted KCP to stay. So that's my biggest problem. The blame for the Lakers is going in the wrong direction. He's the scapegoat, right? Vogel's the scapegoat. He's not Steve Kerr. He's not Popovich or Monty Williams. He's a good coach. He's not a disaster. He does have a ring on his finger from 2020. In large part, obviously, LeBron deserves the bulk of the credit. Absolutely. AD, number 2. Frank Vogel, you could argue number 3. They're the best defensive team in basketball. It's cliche. Still true in 2022. Defense wins championships. So that I mean, I can't say I thought the Lakers, I think I had them as like the 5 seed. That was being too kind. That was, I mean, how far are they back of the 5 seed? I'm looking at the Western Conference standings right now. Okay, the 5 seed is Dallas. The Lakers are 3.5 games back of that. I mean, they're barely holding on at the 8 seed. The 9 seed Clippers don't even have Kawhi or Paul George, and they're a half game back. And Portland doesn't have Damian Lillard. And they're in the play-in tournament as of now. It's sad. I'm going to be interested to see how the Lakers play against Orlando tomorrow. It's going to be very, very interesting. All right. What's next? Russell Wilson. Now, you guys know I've always loved Russell Wilson. That's my guy. I think on the field, he's as gifted a playmaker as we've ever seen at the quarterback position. He's got the arm. Obviously, his escapability, some of those plays where he's moving and dancing in the pocket are just magical, right? He's accurate. Leadership intangibles are just through the roof. He's outstanding. But this year, I don't think it could have gone much worse for the Seattle Seahawks. I think it's safe to say. But I think for, and John says, Russ going to the Giants. I don't know why Russ would want to go to the Giants. Maybe outside of maybe he wants to go there because, Sierra, who's, great entertainer, his wife, she would want to go to New York. But first of all, it's not even in New York. It's in New Jersey. It's in the Meadowlands. And Russ wants to be in a championship winning situation. Giants aren't there yet. I like the guy they hired to be their general manager. I really like that guy from Buffalo, but they've still got a ways to go to even be considered, to even be thought of in the Super Bowl conversation. I don't think at this stage in the game it's going to happen. But Russell Wilson, this season, got hurt, had the finger injury, missed time. Seattle sputtered. He came back. I think they were like 3-6 at the time when he came back to the lineup, and it just kind of fell apart. Now, Seattle finished well. I could argue that's in part because Russell got healthier. He probably came back to a little earlier than he should have. But I think for the Seahawks, and I said this after they lost, which game? Oh, I think it was after they lost to I think it was after they lost to Washington. And I said, look, Russell Wilson, I think he stays in Seattle if Pete Carroll's gone. If Pete Carroll stays, I think Russ is going to ask out. Well, what do you know? Russell Wilson just a week ago said, I want to come back to, Seattle. I want to, go Hawks and all that. Every interview at the end, go Hawks. Well, a few days later, according to, hold on. This article will not. Okay, here we go. According to Chris Mortensen of ESPN, Pete Carroll and the general manager, John Schneider, will be returning to the Seahawks in 2022. Days later, Russell Wilson is going to explore his options, according to his agent. You think that's a coincidence? Right after the Seahawks announced Pete Carroll's back, John Schneider's back. A day later, Russ is going to explore his options. Again, I said this. Russ was mad last year when the Seahawks went 12-4, won the division. Yes, I get they lost a playoff game to the Rams, but they did win the division. Okay, they were a really good football team last year. And Russ had an excellent season. And he was mad after that. So I'm like, you think he's going to feel better or even the same after a 7-10 season, missing the playoffs, being the only team in your division to not make the playoffs? Ultimately, what it came down to, or what I think it came down to, is Russ is like, you know what? I love Pete. Our relationship has run its course. It's run its course. Pete Carroll's offense and defense, for that matter, it's kind of an outdated scheme. It's a little Mike McCarthy-esque. It's not up to date. It's not 2022 offense or defensive schemes at all. And they fired Ken Norton, the defensive coordinator. So they're looking for a new defensive coordinator. But I think that's the issue for Pete Carroll, is he hasn't really evolved. That's why I give Andy Reid a lot of credit. And that's why I kind of think Belichick deserves some criticism for this. Andy Reid, whatever the new style of offense that's come in, he's gone on right with it. I mean, if you're, Nick Saban, same thing in college football. if you are somebody who is smart and intelligent and the best in the world at what you do, and Andy Reid, I think, is the best offensive coach in the sport, if offense changes, okay, let me adapt to it. And because I'm so smart, I'm going to be better than everybody else at this. That's exactly what's been the case with Andy Reid. Pete Carroll is a brilliant football coach. Brilliant. He just hasn't adapted. Bill Belichick, likewise. Brilliant. Genius, people have thrown out there. Hasn't really adapted to the modern NFL. And so I think for Russell Wilson, what he wants, yes, he talked about last year, he wants a say in the offense and things of that nature. And I remember saying a year ago on the show, yeah, Russ has earned that. I mean, he's been in the MVP discussion year after year, which how he hasn't gotten an MVP vote in his career is a crime to me. But Russ has won a Super Bowl. Russ has been to another Super Bowl and was a yard away from winning it. He's put up the numbers. He's won the games. He's won the divisions. He's won playoff games. I think he deserves a say. I think he's earned that right. He's a veteran. He's about to go into year 11 next year. So Seattle may give him a say. How much of a say? I mean, let's be real. The Seahawks roster ain't great. DK Metcalf, I've always thought was an overrated player. He's a physical freak, right? He's big, strong. You can hit him as hard as you want. If you're a safety, it ain't gonna matter. He's still gonna be on his feet. He can run. He's a terrible route runner. Terrible. Tyler Lockett, that's really all he does is he's a deep threat. Yeah, Tyler Lockett's a much better route runner than DK Metcalf. Chris Carson, man can't stay healthy. Offensive line, it's garbage. Defense, even with Jamal Adams when he was healthy, it's at the bottom of the NFL back-to-back years. And yet Russ last year, I talked about value with Dak Prescott. I'm not sure there's a quarterback more valuable to their franchise. Maybe Aaron and Tom, but Russ is up there. Like Seattle is not, it's not a poorly run franchise, but it is Kansas City. You know, it isn't, I'd even say Green Bay. It isn't San Francisco at all. They're staying in the division, the Rams. I think Russ is going to want out of there, without a question. I think give it maybe after the Super Bowl, just like last year. I think Russ, his agent, are going to come out and say, Russ wants out of Seattle. Russell Wilson's requested a trade from the Seattle Seahawks because, like I said, I think Russ loves the city. I think he loves his teammates. I think he does have, Russ is an optimistic guy. I think he does think the Seahawks can get better. Just not with Pete Carroll. It's an outdated scheme. So I think that's what's going to drive Russell Wilson away from Seattle. John compares, I'm sure you're talking about Russell Wilson, not Russell Westbrook. Russell equals Melo. Yeah, the only thing, though, with Melo, of course, I'm curious, are you talking about Melo's situation in Denver or in New York with the Knicks? Because it could be, because Melo asked out of Denver to go to the New York Knicks. Now, Russ is from, gosh, where is Russell Wilson from? I might want to Google that. I don't know what state that man's from. That's embarrassing. Yeah, I don't think he's from Texas or California or anything like that. He was born, according to Wikipedia, in Cincinnati, Ohio. And high school, he played high school at a prep school in Virginia. So, no, I mean, the closest team to that would be like Washington. Russ probably don't want to go to Washington. And John says, yeah, in Denver, small cities. Yeah. And because he also set up here, it's Seattle. Sorry, respectfully. Yeah. Seattle's a good city. Like, I don't want to take shots to the people of Seattle. It's an amazing fan base. I mean, there's a reason Sue Bird's coming back for another year with the Seattle Storm, right? But with Russ, I don't even know if it's necessarily the city. I mean, I've been to Tampa Bay. Tampa's not a huge city, but Tom saw an opportunity there and he took it. And it worked out pretty well. He's got a Super Bowl and he's trying to go win another this year. I think what Russell Wilson wants is a more modern coach and a roster he can work with. Like, we'll see what Denver does. Maybe I think what Russ is doing is he's going to wait until all the head coaches have been hired. I think there's 8 openings. So after all 8 head coaches are hired, he's going to say, okay, which one works the best? Because I'm thinking Denver. People talking about maybe Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded to Denver. I think if the Denver Broncos hire let's say they hire Brian Dable. If I'm Russ, I'm bolting for Denver, Colorado. Okay, I stay on the West Coast. It is absolutely a bigger city, as far as I know, than Seattle. You've got the tight end Noah Fant. You've got Melvin Gordon, who's still productive back. You've got Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick, who they just signed to an extension, and an improving offensive line and a defense that does have Patrick Surtain. Now, the division's tough. You got to go against Kansas City, Vegas, and the Chargers twice a year, but you're used to being in a tough division. You've won a tough division with Arizona, the Niners, and the Rams. So it wouldn't be like that much of an adjustment for Russell Wilson, especially as great of a player as he is. So, I think Denver would probably be the best situation for him. Chicago, who's one of the teams that he wanted to go to, they've got Justin Fields. And for the Vegas Raiders, they're not going to move off Derek Carr. I mean, I would move off Derek Carr for Russell Wilson, but not that many other guys. So I think Denver would work. And plus, it's Seattle trading to the opposite conference, to the Broncos. So I think that could work. So it's going to be an interesting situation. All righty. It is divisional weekend. 8 teams left. This is basically the Elite 8 of the NFL. 8 teams have their Super Bowl dreams still in sight. 8 teams still believe we can hoist the Lombardi Trophy on February the 13th at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. 4 teams, their dream to do that will continue. 4 teams will join the other 24 and have their dreams of winning a Super Bowl come to an end. I'm telling you, man, there are some fascinating matchups. I mean, there is not a game where I'm like, blowout. Not one. Now, there may be one, hopefully not more than that. But I could easily see all 4 games coming down to being a score. And honestly, and I'm looking at my predictions right now, I got 3 of the 4, that being the case. So let's go and get the background music started. It's intense. It is divisional weekend. Here we go. Starting with tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific time on CBS, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the 1 seed, the well-rested Tennessee Titans. The Titans are favored by only 3.5, which I think is really interesting because you've got a Tennessee Titans team that is toward the top of the league in sacks. You got, according to Adam Schefter, Derrick Henry will start tomorrow. So Derrick Henry, King Henry, is back. Ryan Tannehill has had a productive season. Julio Jones, only 1 touchdown with the Titans. But we know in the limited playoff action he's gotten, he's been pretty darn good. A.J. Brown is a legit number 1 in this league. And Mike Vrabel should be coach of the year. As for the Cincinnati Bengals, you can't count Joe Burrow out, especially when he's got number 1, Jamar Chase. This is a defense that can get to the quarterback. Hendrickson will be ready to go. We've got a lot of good defensive linemen on that team that should be ready to go for Saturday afternoon in Nashville. But to me, the deciding factor is this. Tennessee is toward the top of the league in sacks. The Bengals and Joe Burrow. Burrow was sacked more times than any quarterback in the league. So, to me, that's the deciding factor. So, I'm going to take the Titans to win this game 29-21. A lot of people are I haven't seen people not believe in a number 1 seed the way they've not believed in Tennessee. Because my thing is this. Look, they went 12-5. And I saw this stat earlier. They're 4-0 against teams that are still alive in the playoffs. This regular season, 4-0 against teams that are still in the playoffs today. So, beating good teams, it's not like they beat up on a bad schedule. Tennessee has had a brutal schedule. Yet they're 12-5. They beat Kansas City. They beat the Rams on the road. They beat the Buffalo Bills. So, with Derrick Henry coming back, I'm going to take the Titans to win 29-21 over the Cincinnati Bengals. Wouldn't be shocked if the Cincinnati win. I almost had this as if I were a betting man, but I decided to go against it. Like, you know what? The thing is, I'm not going to bet against Burrow, not going to bet against Chase. Wouldn't be shocked if they won this game. I mean, we usually have like a lower seed, and Cincinnati's a 4 seed. We usually every year have like a lower seed that gets the conference championship game. I don't think that's going to be Cincinnati. I think that's going to be somebody else. And so now it is time for...
We're a betting man.
We're a betting man. I am looking at The San Francisco 49ers going to Green Bay to take on the Packers. The 6th seed 49ers, who upset my Cowboys. I didn't think it was that much of an upset, but they beat my Cowboys last week in Jerry World. You've got the Green Bay Packers on the other hand. Darius Smith is coming back. Whitney Merciless, back. Jair Alexander, in all likelihood, back. So they're healthy. They're ready to go. And the temperatures in Green Bay, Wisconsin tomorrow night are going to be frigid. It'll be about 5 degrees at kickoff. So it's going to be a classic Lambeau Field. It's going to be one of the coldest games when it's all said and done in NFL playoff history. It's not going to be like the Ice Bowl out there, but it's going to be pretty darn cold. And Aaron Rodgers is probably going to win MVP. And Devontae Adams is the best receiver in football. And Matt LaFleur has done a really good job with the Packers this season. Here's the difference to me. The Packers in this game are favored minus 5.5. The line has gone up and down from 5.5 to 6 all week. Right now it's at 5.5. I would absolutely take the 49ers and the points. Take them plus 5.5 because here's the thing. What San Francisco does best, the Packers can't stop. The run game. The 49ers are one of the best running teams in the NFL. Elijah Mitchell, second best rookie running back to Najee Harris. You've got Trent Williams at left tackle. You've got George Kittle, the best blocking tight end in football. The Packers, on the other hand, third to last in stopping the run. That is going to become a factor tomorrow night. So not only am I going to take the 49ers the points, this is an upset of the week. Give me the San Francisco 49ers to win this game 31-21. Not only are they the Packers not going to cover, they ain't winning this game. Not only they ain't winning this game, they're losing by double digits. Because the San Francisco 49ers, first of all, Aaron is 0-3 against the 49ers in his playoff career. Secondly, for San Francisco, the times they played Green Bay in the last 3 years, in 2019, they played twice. Both games were over at halftime. They played again this year. And keep in mind, San Francisco was not where they were. This was like week 3. San Francisco was not where they are now. It took a game-winning drive by Aaron Rodgers to beat them. And so you look at the fact that, and again, Aaron could be a little rusty. Hasn't played in 2 weeks. Barely played a couple weeks ago against Detroit. I'm going to take the 49ers to get the upset. I've said for weeks the Packers are going to be like a Duke and Kentucky freshman. One and done. Give me the San Francisco 49ers to win 31-21 and end the season of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and maybe retire Aaron Rodgers from the Packers or from the National Football League. I can't imagine what Monday's show is going to be like if this prediction does come to fruition. Let's go now to the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, listen, the Saturday games are amazing. The Sunday games are like literally must-see TV. Literally. Because in this game, it's like I talk about matchups. Matchups matter in the playoffs. We just talked about the 49ers and the Packers. The Rams match up real well against Tampa Bay. You've got Ryan Jensen, who's going to be a game-time decision. We're talking about their offensive line. Ryan Jensen, the all-pro center for the Bucs, game-time decision. Tristan Wirfs, we'll see. So Tampa's offensive line is beat up, and they got to protect Tom Brady against Von Miller and Aaron Donald. Add to it, Ronald Jones out, Rashad Perriman out. Leonard Fournette, we'll see. Antonio Brown, gone. Chris Godwin, gone. So, and this is what scared me about Tampa. They're beat up. Right? Last year, part of the reason they won the Super Bowl was because they were healthy. So you have a Rams team coming in that can obviously run the football with Cam Akers. Tampa's good against the run, so I think this is going to be a game that Matt Stafford has to win with his arm. Because the weakest part, I've said this for a month, the weakest link in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is the secondary. I mean, they've got an old Richard Sherman starting. Like, no disrespect to Richard Sherman. He ain't what he was in Seattle. Or even in San Francisco. So, I think the Bucs are going to try and double Cooper Kupp, make OBJ beat them. I think that will hurt them. By the way, the Bucs are favored only minus 2.5 in this game. This reminds me a lot of last year when Tampa went to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Remember, they lost to the Saints? They lost to the Rams this year. But Tampa lost to the Rams earlier this season. And the Rams were much better than, were clearly the better team that afternoon in SoFi Stadium. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played the Saints twice last year in the regular season. Lost pretty comfortably in one, got mollywopped in the second game. And the Saints defensive line got Davenport and Cam Jordan. Yeah, they're going to get to Tom Brady. Same with Aaron Donald and Von Miller. The difference is, I ain't got a number, a stat, anything to back up what I'm about to say. This is the GOAT. This is the greatest football player who ever lived. Tom Brady. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., as somebody on another network says. Give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game. Close, 24-23. I don't think they're going to cover. I really don't. 2.5. I know it's little. I think it takes a game-winning field goal by Ryan Suckup to win this game for Tampa. Because at the end of the day, this is a quarterbacks league. And again, with two evenly matched teams, heck, even with a Rams team that I think today is better than Tampa Bay, I'm going to go with Tom Brady over Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has never played in a bigger game in his life. Ever. He's 0-3 on the road in the postseason. So you're expecting me, you asked me to expect him to take the Rams to Tampa. He's going to be asked to carry a bigger load than he did against the Cardinals. And he's supposed to beat the Bucs, the defending champs? Nah. Tampa Bay is going to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. They're going to win this game by a single point. This feels a lot like Dallas and the 49ers. Again, hopefully I'm not wrong on this one because I picked Tampa and Buffalo to get to the Super Bowl. But Tampa's going to win this game 24-23, game-winning drive by Ryan Suckup. And that's that. And our final game of the week, probably the best game of the week. You've got the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in a rematch of the AFC Championship game a year ago. A year ago, Kansas City won this one. Won fairly easily. They were down 9-0, and I think they went on like a 38-6 run the rest of the way. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy what Kansas City pulled off in the last few quarters of that game. But earlier this season, Buffalo came in. They remembered the AFC Championship game, and all they did was go to Arrowhead Stadium and win 38-20. Won by 3 touchdowns. So in this one, by the way, the Chiefs are favored only -2. Okay, no home favorite is favored by less than Kansas City. And that's Arrowhead Stadium. That's as good of a home field advantage as there is. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen last week, magnificent. They were outstanding. Right, you had the Chiefs putting up 42. You had the Bills putting up 47. Both guys were money. Especially when, in the first quarter, Mahomes took a minute for him to get going. He had 2 turnovers early. After that, off to the races. I picked this to be the AFC Championship game again, and it was going to be in Arrowhead Stadium before the season started. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, but we do get them now. At least we do get them at some point in the playoffs. And to me, what the number one thing is, you might talk about the Packers. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the 49ers. That's why I think they're going to lose. Kansas City's worse. They're worse than Green Bay at stopping the run, statistically, as far as yards per carry given up. Buffalo is, in the last month, running down people's throats. The only concern I have, Patrick Mahomes is more consistent than Josh Allen. That's Patrick Mahomes this year he's had some off games. He hadn't had some horrendous games. Like Josh Allen was garbage against the Atlanta Falcons. And even against the Jets, he was good, not great. And so on Sunday night, 6:30 p.m., Eastern on CBS, 3:30 Pacific, Kansas City favored -2. Give me the upset. Give me the Buffalo Bills to win this game, just like Tampa Bay, by a game-winning field goal in a shootout. I think both quarterbacks are just lighting up. It's going to be a fireworks show. Bills win this one 34-31 over Kansas City because, first of all, you got the motivation of losing to the Chiefs last year. Okay, that factors in at least a little bit. You also have the fact that Buffalo, again, runs it down teams' throats. Kansas City, I wouldn't think would be any different, right? Because they struggle to stop the run. Josh Allen is not exactly Big Ben Roethlisberger. Okay, the Chiefs can get after Big Ben pretty easily because he's a statue back there in the pocket. Josh Allen moves around better than any quarterback in the league, not named Lamar Jackson. He's that good. So I think he's hot. I think the Bills' offense is hot. Offensive lines look good. Running game's been outstanding. Emmanuel Sanders has been good. Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley and Knox, they got some weapons. So does Kansas City. But I think what the Bills are going to do, take away the downfield passing game. That is what has limited the Chiefs all year. Is Tyreek Hill has not been that deep threat like he was in the past 3 with Patrick Mahomes. So I think they're going to take a lot from the Bill Belichick game plan and what he did when the Patriots beat the Chiefs. Remember that a few years ago in the AFC Championship game? You know, Pat Mahomes' first year there. That's what a lot of defensive coordinators have done this year. And as you know, as Jekyll and Hyde as Josh Allen has been, Patrick Mahomes hasn't been that, but the collective group, the Kansas City Chiefs, have been. Remember, had they lost to Denver, I believe they would have been the 3 seed. So this game would have been in Buffalo. And they could have easily lost that game at Denver. If Melvin Gordon doesn't fumble, I think the Broncos win that game. So that's where I'm at. That's my divisional round predictions. I'm going to take the Titans to win 29-21 over the Bengals. The 49ers to upset the Packers 31-21. The Bucs to barely, narrowly eke out the Los Angeles Rams 24-23. And the Buffalo Bills to win 34-31 on a game-winning field goal in the best game of the weekend over the Kansas City Chiefs. I picked the Chiefs this year. I said they get to the AFC Championship game. I didn't have them going to the Super Bowl. I have Buffalo getting there. And I think Buffalo right now is playing better than any team in football. The same cannot be said about Tampa, even though they took care of Philadelphia. A lot of that was just Jalen Hurts was horrible in that game. And Nick Sirianni didn't have many answers for the Bucs. That's kind of where I'm at. All right, got a few comments here. Let's see. John just says, I got the Rams. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams won. But it's like Aaron Donald said the other day, and I'm like, man, this is like the last dance all over again with Michael Jordan. Like, remember when people would say stuff that kind of piss off Michael Jordan, and it'd be like, oh, God, why would you say that? Like, Jordan's going to go out here and drop 40 on your head. Same thing with Aaron Donald. Donald said, this is a new year. He was talking about Tom Brady. He said, this is a new year. Like, why would you say that? Why would you say that? You're going to have to go more bulletin board material. Those guys are already motivated and ready to go because it's the divisional round. They're the champs. They want to defend their crown. I think that factors in too. Cooper Constantine is more confident than me in the Bucs. He said, I think the Bucs will win by 4+. So you think they're going to cover the spread and win this game certainly more comfortably than I think they will. I don't know. I don't know. Again, what's the spread again? 2.5? Gosh, I don't know if I bet the over there on Tampa. I really wouldn't. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams won. Not in the slightest, because I think they match up better against Tampa than the other way around. John agrees with me. He's got the Bills. And I think you also, John, had, like me, you had Buffalo getting the Super Bowl. Again, matchups. Buffalo can run it down anybody's throat. Kansas City can't stop anybody in the run game. So I think that matters. John just said Rams with the points. I agree. He says, Bills versus Green Bay. There it is. Bills versus Green Bay Super Bowl. And Grady says, wow. Grady with kind of a little hot take here. He says, I mean, this is kind of technically the AFC title. Okay, yeah. Okay, never mind. That's not a hot take. I thought you were saying, he said Tennessee or Cincy are just going to roll over against one of these teams. I thought you were saying Tennessee or Cincy, the winner of that game, was going to roll over either Buffalo or Kansas City. I was like, I don't know about that. Yeah, you're probably right. Although, I'm not going to lie, a lot of people are kind of dismissing the Titans. I'm not going to do it. I dismissed the Titans before the season, at midseason, certainly when Derrick Henry went down. They're 4-0 against teams that are still in the playoffs. They beat good teams, like the anti-Cowboys. Like, they beat good teams. And Mike Vrabel's definitely the anti-Mike McCarthy. Definitely. I've talked about Mike McCarthy too much on the show. Way too much. All right. Divisional weekend's going to be freaking awesome. I can't wait. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by, as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up Live at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. By the way, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. You see the subscribe button right there? See that right there? Go subscribe to that, to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Be sure to like. I'm sorry, I do that wrong. Like, share, comment. Helps the channel grow exponentially. If you've been listening to Carving Up Podcasts, we appreciate that as well. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. So have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.